If something in your relationship feels off, but you can't explain why. If you've spent years trying harder in the relationship and yet it just keeps hurting, this space is for you. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism Podcast. Some of the most damaging relationships do not come with shouting matches. They don't come with slammed doors or explosive fights. In this episode, we're talking about the subtle gaslighting in covert narcissistic relationships. The kind of emotional manipulation that does not look dramatic, but slowly erodes your self-trust. We're unpacking what gaslighting in relationships really looks like when it's quiet, reasonable, disguised as normal communication, or even as compassion. Instead of chaos, it comes with confusion. Instead of obvious abuse, it comes with quiet self-doubt. It comes with you sitting alone, replaying a conversation over and over, wondering, did I misunderstand that? Did I overreact? Am I making too much of this? This is what subtle emotional abuse often feels like. No big blow-ups, just a steady questioning of your memory, your feelings, and your perception. And slowly, without even realizing it, you stop trusting yourself. Today, we're talking about gaslighting without the drama, the subtle kind, the really subtle kind, the kind that does not look abusive from the outside, but quietly dismantles you from the inside. When most people hear the word gaslighting, they imagine something dramatic, like big lies, obvious manipulation, clear malicious intent. But in many relationships, especially in those marked by covert narcissism, it rarely looks like that. It looks reasonable. It sounds normal. It feels almost believable. And that's exactly why it's so powerful. Covert gaslighting often comes with just enough truth to sound fair and reasonable, just enough accuracy to make you hesitate, just enough logic to make you think, well, maybe they do have a point. Their words are often not, that never happened. Instead, they say, well, that's not exactly how it happened. Instead of saying, you're lying, they might say, you're just remembering it wrong. Instead of saying, you're crazy, they'll say, you know that you can be a bit sensitive sometimes. These things are not delivered with cruelty or obvious hostility. Sometimes they are, but a lot of times they're not. And this is what makes it so disorienting, because what they say is often said calmly, gently, even with a sigh that sounds thoughtful. The tone can even feel reasonable and concerned. There might not be any shouting. Sometimes it even feels like that they're trying to help you see things more clearly. Because it sounds so rational, because it carries just enough plausibility, you don't brace yourself against it. You don't fight it. You absorb it. You turn inward. You self-reflect and give their words space inside of you. You begin adjusting your memory, your feelings, your thoughts, your reactions to match their version of reality. The distortion is subtle enough that it just doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like conversation, so it slowly reshapes your reality without you even realizing it. One of the most effective tools in subtle gaslighting is the half-truth. Half-truths are dangerous because they feel really honest. I mean, they definitely can. You might say to them, hey, yesterday when I was telling you about my day and I had a really hard day, you were on your phone the whole time. And it really hurt that you weren't really paying attention to me. And they respond, I wasn't on my phone the whole time. And this can sound, again, caring. It can sound like they're hearing you. They go on and say, I looked up several times. I even told you that your hair looked good. Well, technically, that might be true. Maybe they did look up several times or glance up, whatever you want to call it. Maybe they did. But it doesn't address the emotional reality that you experienced. You felt unseen, unheard, not valued, and you are trying to express this to them. But instead of hearing that, and instead of addressing that, the conversation shifts from your hurt to whether your wording was precise or not. Now you're discussing whether they looked up at all or not, and if so, for how long. The point of feeling devalued gets lost and certainly not addressed, and instead you're focused on whether they technically looked up or not. You walk away thinking, okay, maybe I exaggerated. Clearly, they weren't looking at their phone the whole time. So maybe I should just pay more attention and notice that they are listening to me or signs that they are. No, you described your experience. And get this, just like the first time when you didn't feel heard and you're trying to tell them about not feeling heard, guess what? You feel that way again because you're still not heard. But now you're doubting yourself and changing your behavior instead of calling out their behavior. Let's talk about another scenario. Maybe you say to them, "Hey, you promised you'd help me with the kids tonight." And you say this out of that moment of you're just feeling overwhelmed. There's a lot going on trying to get homework done and bath time and bedtime. And so you say, "Hey, you promised that you'd help me with the kids tonight." And they reply, maybe while on their phone, "I said I'd try. I never promised." But maybe they did say try. Okay, fine. But the tone, the context, the way it was said, it felt like a commitment to you, and you were counting on it. It felt settled. It felt like something you could rely on. But now, instead of discussing whether they're going to show up and help, you're discussing language. You're replaying the exact phrasing in your head and you're deciphering the word try or whether they're actually, did they mean it? Did they not mean it? Did they emphasize the word try or did you assume too much or did you fill in something that wasn't there? The focus quietly shifts from their follow through and actually being willing to show up and help to your interpretation of their words. And that shift is everything. Because now the issue isn't whether they're participating, it's whether you misheard them, whether you expected too much, whether you're being unfair. And you find yourself defending why you believe them instead of asking, why aren't they stepping up? And over time, this pattern trains you to just lower your expectations, to clarify less, to expect less, to assume less, to rely on them less, not because you're demanding, but because you're tired of feeling foolish for believing what felt like a promise. You're tired of feeling like you have to dissect every word in the conversation. Some of the most destabilizing gaslighting statements don't feel harsh. They feel caring, thoughtful, even protective. Maybe you say to them, "That comment you made in front of everyone, that embarrassed me." And they respond softly, "Oh no, I would never try to embarrass you. You know that. I think you might be reading into it." There's warmth in their voice, even reassurance, maybe a small smile. And now instead of staying with your embarrassment and validating your feelings, you're questioning whether you misinterpreted their intention. The focus moves from the impact of what they said to the intent that they are now justifying. Because their intent sounds kind, your hurt gets dismissed and even begins to feel unreasonable. Maybe you say to them, "It really hurt when you didn't come to my event." And they gently reply, "I just didn't think it was that important to you. You know I would have come if I knew it mattered too much." Well, this can sound loving. It can sound logical, sure. But the subtle shift is this: somehow the responsibility moves to you for not expressing yourself clearly enough. You walk away wondering if you failed to communicate properly instead of noticing the pattern of them minimizing what matters to you. Maybe you say to them, "I feel like you shut down when I bring things up." And this is a moment you're trying to connect with them. And they softly sigh and say, "I just get overwhelmed when there's conflict. You know how sensitive I am." Well, now what happens? Now you feel protective. You don't want to overwhelm them, so you soften your concerns. You shrink your words and your thoughts and feelings. You start filtering what you say so they won't feel stressed. The gaslighting here is not loud, it's subtle. And in that small, subtle way, it teaches you that your needs are too much for their nervous system. Maybe you say to them, I remember agreeing to that. But they calmly respond, I think your stress might be affecting your memory. You've had a lot on your plate lately. This sounds almost concerned, like they're worried about you. But underneath that concern is this quiet suggestion that your perception is unreliable. Your memory is unstable. And because they frame it as care, you don't push back. You just internalize it. Maybe you say, hey, that joke felt disrespectful. And they warmly say, I tease you because I feel comfortable with you. I wouldn't joke like that with someone I didn't love. Have you ever heard that before? So now you're confused because love and disrespect are being woven together in the very same sentence. The implication is subtle. If you reject the joke, you're rejecting their version of closeness. If you push back, you're pushing away their version of connection. And you certainly don't want to do that. You don't want to be the one who makes things heavy or overly serious. So instead of staying with the knot that's in your stomach, you start analyzing yourself. Am I being too sensitive? Was it just playful? Maybe I should lighten up. But the original issue, how the joke made you feel, gets buried under that fear of seeming unloving or uptight. And over time, you may begin tolerating small jabs in front of friends or family in the name of intimacy and connection. You convince yourself that this is just how close.
Nobody does selling better than Shopify. Shopify is the home of the #1 checkout on the planet. And the not-so-secret, with Shop Pay that boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts go abandoned and way more sales going through. So if you're into growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling. On the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Businesses that sell more sell on Shopify. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout that Skims uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period for 3 months at shopify.com/Westwood1, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Westwood1 to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/Westwood1.
The secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most highly sought-after products on the market. It visibly shrinks under-eye bags and smooths out crow's feet in minutes, and the effects last up to 10 hours. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle Magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. In as little as 10 minutes, Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results. The best news, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95. Plus, get free shipping. Don't wait. Order Plexiderm today. Visit plexiderm.com/special. That's plexiderm.com/special. Paid for by Sheer Science.
Couples work, but something inside you keeps shrinking because humor that consistently lands as humiliation does not feel like love. It feels like erosion. Maybe you say to them, sometimes I feel alone in this relationship. And they gently respond, that makes me so sad that you feel that way. That really hurts that you would say that. I try so hard and I don't know what else I could do. Suddenly, the emotional center of this conversation shifts. The focus is no longer on your loneliness and your need for connection. It's their pain about your loneliness, their hurt feelings, their effort that you're not recognizing, their confusion. Now, the tone is soft. Maybe their eyes look wounded. Maybe they sigh. Maybe they even reach for your hand or for a hug. And now you feel guilty. You weren't trying to hurt them. You weren't trying to criticize. You were trying to share something vulnerable. You were trying to share a feeling that really felt like it needed to be said. It needed to be heard. It needed to be cared for. But now you're reassuring them. Now you're saying, I know you try. I'm not saying you don't care. I didn't mean it like that. Your loneliness quietly disappears from the room. Nothing explosive happened. They didn't yell. They didn't deny your words outright. But your experience was never actually explored. It was never heard. Your words and your feelings didn't land. There was no curiosity, no tell me more, no leaning in and movement towards you about your feelings. Over time, this teaches you something dangerous. Bringing up your unmet needs will cost you emotionally. It will make them feel wounded. It will make you feel responsible. So you start swallowing your loneliness instead of expressing it. The subtle distortion isn't really in what they said, it's in what they never said. It's in what didn't happen. Your pain wasn't held, it was redirected. You walked away feeling like the one who needed to apologize for having a need in the first place. This is why subtle gaslighting is just so hard to identify. It isn't always delivered with sharp edges. It often sounds compassionate, regulated, emotionally intelligent, vulnerable. There may be eye contact, a soft tone, even physical affection. But the pattern remains the same. Your experience gets reframed just enough that you begin to doubt it. And over time, the most dangerous shift happens very quietly. You start pre editing your feelings before you ever say them out loud. Over time, you stop saying that wasn't okay and start saying, maybe I'm expecting too much. You stop saying that hurt and start saying it's probably not a big deal. You stop saying, I remember clearly, and you start saying, maybe I'm wrong. Your inner voice gets quieter, but their voice gets louder. You become hyper aware, hyper vigilant, constantly checking yourself before you speak. You over explain, over self reflect, over apologize. You rehearse conversations in your head before you ever have them, not because you're weak, but because your reality keeps getting dismissed. Now, this type of subtle gaslighting is so hard to name. There's no smoking gun, no screaming fights, no obvious cruelty that outsiders can point to or even that you can point to. Just a steady, quiet erasing of you. Society reinforces that confusion by saying things, well, at least he doesn't hit you, or at least she doesn't cheat, or at least they provide. And so they minimize it and you minimize it. They normalize it and you normalize it. You just endure it. And because there's always just enough truth in what they say, or not always, but often, you convince yourself that they are being reasonable and you're not. Now, let me paint a composite story that many of you will recognize here. Sarah tells her husband that she feels lonely, and he responds, I work hard for this family. I'm exhausted. Now, that's true. Sarah recognizes there's truth in this. He does work hard. He probably is exhausted. So she responds, I know. I just miss you. He replies, so now I'm a bad husband? And he looks hurt. Well, that wasn't what she said. But now she's defending herself instead of expressing her need. And she says, well, that's not what I meant. So he says, but you're often unhappy. Well, sometimes she is, because she feels disconnected, especially. But now that vulnerability gets reframed as criticism. The conversation ends, no yelling, no drama, but she walks away feeling guilty, feeling bad, feeling confused and smaller than before. So, how do we heal from this? Healing begins by reclaiming your authority over your experience. You do not need someone else's agreement to validate what you felt. If it hurt, it hurt. If it confused you, it confused you. That matters. One helpful practice is reality journaling. Write down what happened, what you felt, what was said, and how it was reframed. Patterns become clearer on paper than they do in our spinning thoughts. Over time, you will start to see the distortions for what they really are. Write them down. Write them down as they happen if you can. If you can get to the point you can catch them that fast, write them down. Here's a reflection practice for this week. I want you to write down 3 moments when you have doubted yourself in this relationship. Now, you might have way more than that, but let's find 3. Pull out 3 from your memory. Now, for each one, ask, what did I originally feel? How was it reframed? What do I believe now? Let yourself answer honestly, without minimizing, without defending them, and without judging yourself. When you begin to recognize subtle gaslighting, one of the most important things you can do is anchor yourself internally. Because the disorientation doesn't usually come from shouting and chaos, it comes from that quiet second guessing. That pause inside of us that says, wait, am I wrong here? In that moment, instead of spiraling outward, you can begin to speak to yourself inward. Find a few phrases that you can say to yourself in these moments. I'm going to give you a few options here, but find the ones that resonate with you. It's okay that I experienced that differently. Impact matters, even if the intent was different. I'm allowed to feel hurt without proving it. I don't need to dissect every word to justify my experience. My memory does not have to be perfect in order to be valid. I can trust what I felt in my body. Just because they sound calm does not mean I'm wrong. Kind tone does not cancel harmful impact. I don't have to comfort someone else for my pain. It's okay to pause before I respond. I don't need to resolve this right now, and I'm allowed to hold on to my version of events. And sometimes the simplest, most grounding sentence there is something feels off, and I'm allowed to honor that. Find sentences that work for you, phrases, things you can say. Write them down, put them on a sticky note, put them in your phone. Things that you can say in those moments when you start to feel that subtle gaslighting that is quietly erasing your thoughts and feelings. You do not have to prove subtle gaslighting in a courtroom of logic. You don't have to win the argument. You don't have to convince them. Healing begins when you stop arguing yourself out of your own reality. Healing begins on the inside. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. If there were ever an audience that I wish did not have to exist, it would be this one. Because of what it means you've lived through. I'm truly sorry that you understand this so deeply. And I'm really glad that you're here. May this be a place of safety, clarity, and peace. You are not alone anymore, and you don't have to figure this out by yourself. If this episode resonated with you, please subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And if you'd like to learn more about the support, resources, or coaching that is available for you, you can visit covertnarcissism.com. While I hate it for everyone who understands what I am talking about, I'm really glad that you're here, and I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those that she has worked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and the information provided. Thank you.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.